Woohoo!
All right, are you ready to talk about our next political issue?
Yes. What are we going to be talking about today?
Well, here's one that's pertinent for today or this week. War.
War! Wow, that seems like a really simple issue.
That should be easy to unpack, right? Usually we talk about a conservative and a liberal position.
Yes.
So why don't we try that out? Talk to me about the conservative position on war.
I hesitate to say that they're pro-war, but like they sort of put war on this pedestal, like it's the winners against the losers, and we're fighting for freedom and justice and our country, and then skirt over the fact that this is actually war, and that involves like a lot of really bad stuff.
And you said it's like this sort of patriotic thing.
Yeah.
I think it's what you're getting at, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what value or belief is driving that perspective?
I guess trying to prove that they're like strong. It could be argued, like I feel like both sides can be argued this way, but it could be argued that it's the value of safety is behind that. Like fighting off the bad guys because we're the good guys and we want to make our home safe.
Yeah, sure. So there's obviously a clear reason for war would be defending yourself.
Yeah.
I don't know that defending yourself is a conservative or liberal value. You know, I think historically in America, conservatives have been a little more pro-war.
Yeah.
But it's not clear at this point. Can you describe for me the liberal perspective on war?
I think the liberal side is definitely like against war because they acknowledge like for everyone involved in the war, everyone involved in the countries of the two wars, whether they're actually actively fighting it or not, there's so much blood and death and injury, and people that fight in the war, even if they make it out alive, are traumatized for like the rest of their lives. When you push aside pro-war propaganda and you actually get down to what war is, which is just people fighting each other and trying to kill each other, it becomes really easy to understand why liberals are anti-war.
I'm not seeing a real liberal value that you're espousing. I think we've seen that both sides, both parties, both political positions are kind of against killing on some level. Where's the real disagreement? So once again, you were talking about conservatism being more pro-war, and I said I think that comes historically in the U.S. from really the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
But I challenge you a little bit that conservatives are more pro-war now. In particular, we're talking about arming Ukraine. Don't see that with other things like abortion.
No.
Never seen that happen.
Well, you have to ask, like, is this actually like a tides are changing thing where like liberals are becoming more pro-war and conservatives anti-war? Or is it something about this specific situation that is changing the minds of these people? And this, like, there's a very big difference between joining a war that you don't have to join or starting a war that you don't have to start and defending yourself from a country that's actively trying to tear you apart.
Of course. Can you give me a freedom-based analysis of war, either pro or against? Maybe both?
Yeah. Well, I think you mentioned in the anti-war argument, it's definitely an infringement of personal freedom to be drafted into war and to have to fight and possibly die in a war that you never wanted to fight in.
Well, one other thing that you could say from a freedom-based perspective, I think, and this would go back from a full-on governmental perspective and really be a conservative argument, the government shouldn't be taking our money to spend it on killing other people in a foreign country. All right, well, so talk to me about freedom-based pro-war.
Yeah, like it could definitely be argued that you are being free from like the country that you're fighting against, whether that be in an independence way where like the country, like you're like a colony of the country, or in a way where the country is like infringing on your personal rights.
In those circumstances, the concept of war, and certainly this kind of conflates with the American independence war, you know, and our value of freedom in war, is that you're fighting against an oppressor. So interesting, once again, that freedom can kind of, like, you know, freedom kind of also sits on both pro-war and anti-war positions a little bit.
And I feel like part of the reason is that it's really hard to talk about is, like, with, like, the gun control argument, one side would say, yeah, this is terrible and, like, awful and it will lead to death, and the other side says, no, it won't. And then for, like, the abortion argument, it's kind of like the same thing, but, like, flipped around. But with war, 100% of the people involved can agree real people that we care about are going to die in this, and they're going to be injured in this, or they're going to be horribly impacted by this.
So let me ask you a question then. If that's universally acknowledged, like, is there a circumstance under which, and let's just use our country, right, the United States, should initiate a war?
What about, like, the independence wars?
I could see that argument, right? But that places a very high value on freedom, right?
Well,
that you're willing to give your life for that.
I feel like I have been, like, slightly critical of, like, the freedom argument before, in terms of, like, when it's used and, like, valued above, like, safety in some cases. But, like, freedom is a very real, important thing to value. And in, like, depending on how badly you're being oppressed, it's absolutely worth giving your life for.
Well, so fine. So you think that a revolutionary war could be a justifiable position?
Yeah.
But like, let's talk about a foreign war. The United States has had a lot of military intervention in the Middle East over the past 20 years. Is any of that justified? Or in general, just like more broadly, is there a just war?
I think that it can be seen as similar to, like, the independence wars, in that if you are fighting, like, against an oppressor, then that war can be justified.
Right. So I guess what you would even be saying then is it's justifiable to fight for other people's freedom as well.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I'm assuming that you would say that fighting for material gain is probably not a justifiable reason for going to war.
I think that it's a really common theme in history and today and just the entire world, where material gain is valued so far above people. And you can make a million arguments to justify, like going to war for land or money or, like, resources, but, like, if people are going to die in that war, then that war is not worth it.
I hear a lot of rhetoric on the internet that the America went to war in the Middle East because of oil. Do you have any perspective on that? Why was the United States in the Middle East fighting? Right?
I don't really know.
Yeah. I've always found that a little bit of a frustrating argument on the internet. I think that the reason that the Middle East is important to the United States on some level is because that it does have strategic oil reserves. But I don't really see, certainly there aren't soldiers who were ever convinced to go to war from the United States for taking someone's oil.
Yeah.
Like, that was never given. And it's not like they, like, took all the oil for themselves.
And I think that it's important to acknowledge, if it was all for the oil, then that's definitely not a justifiable reason to have a war. But if the weird grab for oil had the side effect of helping improve other people's lives and win a country their freedom, then the war was justified.
How does any government get its citizens to start a war?
There's, like, drafting, for one. Like, a lot of soldiers that fight in wars did not actively choose to go and fight in that war, no matter how happy they are that the war is being fought.
Well, so let's take our classic Great War, World War II. right?
Yeah.
I don't think there was a large amount of, and I may be wrong on this, I don't think there was a large amount of conscription in Germany. How does something like that happen?
Yeah. Well, then there's obviously the massive amounts of propaganda involved in every war ever, where the countries will, like, take out every marketing and manipulation tactic that they have and convince their citizens that these guys are the enemy and they're going to hurt you and we need to defeat them, and then we'll be safe or good, or then we'll have money, or then it'll be epic. And like, it's very, and a lot of times it's patriotic based, and it creates, a lot of times it tries to create this oppressive sense of fear, and it's that we need to like fight back against.
What is propaganda about? What in a human being is propaganda trying to change?
Your beliefs.
Your beliefs. Any reason I started with epistemology, right? And how our beliefs form. So I think the short question, or the short answer, I think the short answer as to how a country can convince its citizens to go to war is they convince them to believe that it's just. It's very hard to get someone to go to war if they don't believe in that war. And I think we're finding that right. I think Russia's finding that out right now. I don't think a lot of Russian citizens care about invading Ukraine.
No, you can see, yeah, but you can see a lot of people protesting, and also that like the news in Russia is like being controlled by the government to like try to, like, they're trying to manipulate their citizens into believing that it's a just war, but people aren't really agreeing.
Well, and so once again, though, I think that the reason I want you to understand that wars are fought over beliefs. The greatest example of how wars are fought over beliefs is the United States' obsession with the Middle East. I think that it's less about oil and it's more about Islam. It takes away the freedom of people who don't believe in that religion. It certainly, Islamic states right now are not built around the promise of freedom of religion.
Yeah. I have to point out, though, this sort of hate of Islam has carried over even in the United States, and it's kind of turned around on itself. Freedom of religion is good, and like that's why this is bad. But then, like in the United States, it's sort of like you shouldn't believe this.
Well, and of course, let's not deny the aspect of beliefs once again that in the Middle East versus the United States, that the United States is a Christian country.
Yeah.
And Christians have a long and storied history of invading the Middle East because it was Islamic and wasn't Christian. I think the reason why I want you to understand the connection between war and beliefs is because, once again, it underscores how important our beliefs are and how important it is for us as human beings to evaluate those beliefs and make sure that they're right.
Yeah.
And not just sort of go with whatever pops up into your head. Like, I think there's a moral responsibility to evaluate your beliefs and to make sure that they're aligned with reality on some level.
Yeah.
It makes beliefs a very kind of important thing to, I don't know, protect and defend, and in how society deals with how society deals with the tension of the freedom to let people believe what they want and the danger of human beings who believe something inaccurate is a theme that we're definitely going to be talking about in the future.
Yeah.
Because that's what this is all about in some level. So I assume coming into this, you would have said, I'm an anti-war person.
Yeah.
Right? And after this conversation, though, do you see it as being a little more complex than that? Or what's your position now?
Well, like, if anyone asked me, I would definitely still tell them, like, I'm against war. Like, I'm not gonna say I'm pro-war. But, like, before, I might have said, like, knee-jerk reaction, like, no, war isn't really a thing that can be justified. And now that I have thought about it, I think that it is a little bit more of a complicated issue. And while war is absolutely a bad thing, it can lead to good results, and in some cases it can be justified.
Interesting. Well, you'll have an interesting time in college with that position.
What's your position in war?
Nah, it's probably roughly where you're at right now.
Yeah.
Right. That it's. I think that the human consequences of war there's a lack of understanding with those, or a lack of emphasis on that. So I think that war is a very blunt tool, and it's hard to achieve specific objectives with it, and it causes horrific pain and violence.
Yeah.
But under some circumstances, it may be the only alternative.
When you're considering going to war, as if that's a real thing people actually consider, all world leaders that are watching this video, next time you're considering going to war,
yes,
you number one, first thing you assess and prioritize is the human value in war and exactly what it's going to do to the citizens of your country and the citizens of every other country. Because that is the most prime and important factor involved in war, and it is an undeniable fact that this is going to hurt so many people. And then number two, you have to decide what you're fighting for. Because if it's for money, if it's for resources, it's not worth it. If it's for land, it's not worth it. But if it's for other people, then you're going to have to look into the complexities of it a little bit more and decide if it is actually worth it. And depending on how badly you're being oppressed, it's absolutely worth giving your life for.
All right.
We hope that you enjoyed that video, and if you did, please consider checking out the next one in the series.
Or some of our other series on philosophy and life.
We upload videos every Friday, so don't forget to like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe. See you next week.